No, well, the ones with the sign.
One lady couldn't do it. I didn't know that. She was like reverse. Then they brought in the ATM. Yeah, the experience.
What kind of material is it?
Yeah.
And tomorrow's what they do. Well, the one lady, mouse is not working.
Our meeting to order. My name is Lori Cobb, and I want to welcome you all to the special meeting of the Madison County Board of Education for May the 11th, 2021. I would like to ask Mrs. Brock if she would read our vision for us, please.
Madison County Schools, in partnership with the community, strives to equip educators and students with the skills to lead by example, develop and speak with a unique voice, and explore their academic curiosity to make a positive impact on our community and world.
All right, great. Thank you very much. And so next on our agenda item, we have our recognition section, and turn it over to Dr. Gill.
All right, thank you. We'll begin tonight with our staff recognition. During this year of uncertainty and ever-changing protocols, we've been challenged in so many ways as a school district. Our employees have been very flexible and have adapted in the best ways possible. Our school nurses are no exception. They have done an excellent job taking on new responsibilities like contact tracing and organizing vaccine clinics for the employees. This week, we celebrate National Nurses Week, and we would be remiss if we did not take a few moments to show our appreciation for this wonderful group of professionals. They have truly stepped up during this pandemic and have been real heroes for our students and staff. Our district nursing staff is led by Coordinator Sharon Barnes. Sharon, would you like to step up? I think you have a couple of things to say about your crew real quickly.
Thank you. I'm pretty much repeating what you're saying. Of course, National Nurses Week is May the 6th through the 12th. Our school nurses deserve our support, recognition, and appreciation more than ever. As we recognize our school nurses, let's keep in mind they are a special team that works continuously behind the scenes to keep their students, staff, and community safe and healthy. From day one of the pandemic, our school nurses have gone above and beyond for the teachers, staff, families, and children of our community. They have made thousands of phone calls, many during evenings, weekends, and even holiday breaks, to do contact tracing, counsel, teach, and reassure families affected by the pandemic. Our school nurses are highly educated and experienced with backgrounds in critical care, pediatrics, emergency and military services, and other areas. However, they chose to bring their vast skills and experience to our schools and their kindness and dedication to the children of our community. This is what has set them apart from other nurses. Much like other heroes, they don't seek recognition for their work. They are perfectly happy to do good deeds every day under the radar and away from public view. But for our school nurses, I want us to come together tonight to celebrate and thank all of our school nurses as they have done a tremendous job this school year and every school year. On behalf of all of our school nurses, I just want to say thank you to Mr. Neely, Dr. Gillum, all the board, all of our administration team. Without you all, we couldn't do our job. So we really appreciate every one of you all.
Well, thank you, Sharon. And we have a certificate for each one. We're going to call the names, but I also want to mention Sharon here real quickly. She came into the position of coordinator. She's been with us for a while as a school nurse, and she's got a lot of experience in nursing. But she came in this year as our coordinator, and during the middle to jump into that job in the middle of a pandemic. Kudos to you. We really appreciate that work. We couldn't say enough positive things about that as well. So if we're ready, we'll call your name and you come up and pick up your certificate. We'll start with Carrie Hall.
I'm blocked in, so I have
If you would, walk up. And
access-
Aaron, do you have do we want to get pictures here? She'll just present those from right there and they can get pictures because we're all blocked in. So come on up and just step aside and we'll get a group photo in just a second. Let's see, Carrie Hall, Brandy Ballard. Tracy Brandenburg, Whitney Cox, Jay Dillon, and Nicole Hobbs, and Morgan Hobbs, Aaron Holbrook, Leslie Hudson, Whitney Johnson, Tracy Nasita, Katie Sexton, Amanda Smith, Lori Stevens, Robin Swafford, Jennifer Tipton, Melanie Tribble.
Hang on.
Okay. I'm sorry, Jennifer Tipton, Melanie Tribble, and then Heather Wilson, Janie Winkler, Luana Calebs, Chastity Bowling, Shara Morgan, Lisa Kerr, Rhonda McGuire, and last but not least, Sharon Barnes. Let's have a big round of applause. Yes, if you guys would just stand right behind them.
Are you sure? Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you guys very much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, next on staff recognition, we've mentioned several times throughout the year the wonderful job that our food service staff has done in keeping students fed under the most difficult of circumstances. And Scott Anderson and his staff have been on a mission to make sure that every student continues to be fed well throughout the pandemic. Mr. Anderson, I think we mentioned this last month, but Mr. Anderson's leadership has not gone unnoticed. The School Nutrition Association named him Food Service Director of the Year recently, and we would like to congratulate Mr. Anderson formally and thank him for the job that he does and for setting the bar so high for food service in Madison County. Mr. Anderson, if you come forward, I think we have a certificate of Mr. Anderson. All right, and a special recognition tonight. Our district has been blessed with wonderful, dedicated Board of Education members. For the past 20 years, Becky Coyle has faithfully served on behalf of the students and the community as a member of the Madison County Board of Education. Her service began when she was elected to represent Division II in November of 2000. Most recently, Mrs. Coyle was elected in 2020 for her 6th term, which will end in 2024. Mrs. Coyle's leadership has been so valuable to the district and to the community. She has helped the district build and open several new schools, including Glen Marshall Elementary, Caudill Middle, Ferristown Middle, and Boonesboro Elementary. She has helped guide the district through the hiring of 4 superintendents and the loss of Superintendent Mike Caudill. Mrs. Coyle has been a part of board teams that have pushed the district to strive for the highest academic standards in the state. She has been visionary and progressive in her thinking and in her action, always pointing in the direction of student success. We are grateful to have had her leadership for the past 20 years and look forward to her continued leadership in the years ahead. Thank you, Mrs. Coyle, and congratulations on this milestone in service. Thank you. And we have a token for you. If you'll step over there to Mrs. Cobb. She will present you with a token from the district.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, we started brainstorming just a little bit about board members who've had 20 years of service, and there's not a long list. Yeah, it's a big accomplishment in years of service to our district, so we really do appreciate it. All right, that's all of my recognition.
Is that it? Okay, all right, wonderful. Well, thank you to everybody that was recognized. That's really good. Thank you. All right, do we have any audience? No audience comments. All right, let's move on then to our consent agenda. The items in our consent agenda, and we'll blanket vote for all of these. The approval of the minutes of the April 13th meeting, the approval of claims, acknowledgement of the superintendent's personnel actions, acknowledgement of leaves of absence, and the approval of the Ferristown Middle School archery team trip to South Carolina, June 11th and 12th. Do we have any questions on any of these items? No questions? Okay. I will remind everybody watching, we get this information about a week in advance, so we've had plenty of time to review and ask questions. So if I don't have any questions on these items, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Brock. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second by Mr. Rutherford. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you all very much. Our reports, and first up we have Dr. Alicia Hunter with our instruction report on academic intervention and recovery plan.
I'm pretty excited to be up here talking to you guys tonight. The last several months, our principals have been up here talking with you guys. We've had our elementary principals, our middle school principals, and then our high school principals. And I was just really, really impressed listening to them because they shared with you guys what their buildings have been doing, what their teachers have been doing, what their students have been doing with virtual instruction. And what they did was really brag on their teachers, brag on their students, and brag on their families. And I want to do that too. Because this last year and a half, my goodness, it has been something, hasn't it? It's been exhaustive, it's been disruptive, and but what we can say is we've done it. And we have done it. And we've done it because we've had leadership at our building levels who have worked together with those teachers, with those students, with the families, and with every single adult, with you guys, with your support, with our leadership, to make sure students' needs have been met. And what I'm excited to talk with you guys about is some support that we want to put together for what comes next. For what comes next, because we've talked all year and a half that we really don't know what the effects of this pandemic are going to have on any of us. Especially our kiddos. So that's what I want to talk about, because even though we have persevered, we've provided, we've shifted, we've done all that stuff, we want to make sure our kids are. So I want to talk about the continued support that we want to do, and it is several different layers of that. So this year, you guys were gracious enough to say that we could have some positions that we desperately needed to kind of get through this year. And so each building has had those positions to do what was necessary, a teacher level position. Some of those positions did some virtual teaching, some divided classes to make sure that we could social distance and those kinds of things. So moving forward, the first kind of level of support that we want to offer is we're going to keep that teacher level position, but kind of use it in a different way. And schools are so excited about this And we're going to have an interventionist at each school, at our elementary and middle schools. Because support looks different in elementary and middle than it does at the high school. Because when we talk about learning to read, for instance, rather than reading to learn, it kind of looks a little different. And so we want to provide for those schools an interventionist. And it's a teacher level position, so it may not be the same person who's had that position this past year, but it's that same teacher spot. And so that's at the school level. And so that person is going to be, we've heard of those evidence-based interventions that we talk about. And so that's what that person is going to be doing, providing some leadership and support for the schools to make sure those happen. So providing support at that school level. And so we're excited for each school, each elementary and middle school, to have a teacher level spot who's going to be doing that. So that's one level. And so then the next level, because it kind of happens in layers, so the next level is going to be a layer of support that we have learned from our work with our MDC, our Math Design Collaborative. We've had coaches in place for several years now with our MDC schools. And so the next layer of support that we would like to add is 4 district level coaches that would come alongside those interventionists at the school level and provide support for them, who would come and work with that interventionist, work with the principal, work with the teacher, and kind of look at the school-wide picture and provide some support there, and gather some data and say, okay, let's look at this, and let's look and see where those interventions are needed, do some modeling work, do some work with the teachers, work with the principal, and just kind of get that whole picture look and provide that coaching that would need to take place. And again, we've learned so much from that MDC work that that's the kind of practices that we would like to put in place there. And so then one more piece that we would like to provide, mostly for our principals, because they're going to need a little extra help kind of managing all this, is at the district level, would be a director of teaching and learning that would kind of lean in with our principals so that they could have that big picture of what instruction looks like and kind of help them with that whole picture of what that would look like, and give them that level of support from the district level. And so those are the kinds of layers of support as we move forward, because we've got the summer school piece coming up that we've been working so hard on. But then as we move forward, we know we're going to need this, and it's going to take several years to work toward where we know our kiddos are going to need to be. So we're excited about this.
I do have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Regarding, well, the interventionists, the coaches,
Mhm.
are they going to be subject-based, or are they going to be more, we have the math interventionists, we have the reading interventionists. Are they going to be more of a broad brush based on need in the particular schools where they're working, or are they going to be specialized?
They're going to be probably more of just that academic instructional interventionist, because we're not looking to replace the math and reading interventionists that are in the elementary schools. We have our math coaches in place. So these would be more to just come in and look more at that, those interventionists, and be more of just looking at instructional practices, more than just looking at content area, to look at that broader picture. It's a great question, though.
So I know you talked about addressing the needs of elementary and middle. Is there anything particular you're going to do for the high school as well?
Absolutely, we have that in place, and we're going to work with our high schools and kind of help them work on their own system, that we can work on that. And we may need to add later on once we look deeper into that. But yes, we're going to work with them and work with their own systems within that. Mm-hmm.
And this director of teaching and learning that will work with the principals, will they also be working with or in conjunction with all these interventionists?
They're going to oversee that whole program.
Is the idea that there will be a collaborative team?
Absolutely.
All of these
Absolutely.
work
Just like we
together?
have our whole team with our MDC, we're going to model it after that, because our whole team with MDC, we have a district team that meets, and then we have school teams that meet, and then they work individually in the school. I would like to create that whole structure with our intervention team, because we've seen that works, and we're having great results with that. And so with this team, we would like to create like a district level team where each partner kind of comes together and we meet, and then we filter down into the schools.
So your coaches will be assigned to schools?
They would probably work with several schools, yes, but yes, they would go into the school and work with the schools.
Multiple schools?
So as far as the money goes,
Yep.
are these additional teachers that we're supplying, or are these teachers that we already have that are changing roles?
With the interventionist,
Right.
Those have been teachers within the building that have just
Right.
kind of assigned different roles,
Okay.
yes. With the coaches, I foresee them probably being teachers that we already have. I mean, we
Okay.
have fantastic teachers who have phenomenal knowledge. And so those are probably going to come from our schools. I'm hoping they do.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a different position?
Just a different position.
Anybody else have any other questions?
I think you answered them all.
I think it's a great plan, and I love that everybody is getting in front of this.
Yes.
Which is typical of the way we do
Yeah.
things around here, which
Yeah.
is good.
Our schools are working so hard, and we just want to continue to support the work that they're already doing.
Being proactive rather than reactive.
And this will
Absolutely.
start as soon as we get back in the fall.
Yeah, we're
mean,
wanting
I'm
to
sure
go
they'll
ahead
take-
and start
when the students get
training,
back, yeah.
and then immediately start working. Absolutely.
That's good, no delay.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. All right. All right. Next up on our agenda, we have our construction report with Mr. Tony Thomas.
Good evening, Board.
Hello.
And congratulations, Ms. Coyle, on 20 years. I think you can put that Kingston feather in your cap, too, because that was right there at the beginning, so a lot of facilities for you.
Yeah, it was, I got to go to the dedication. so-
Oh, well, there you go. Good. And of course, KSBA this year will be there. It's a different location, different place. Come find us.
We will
Well,
find
We will find you.
Just so we have fun talking about construction projects and things that are going on. So I'll start the report in Berea, and I think I failed to show you all the sign down there last time, but so most of you probably seen it, but they've got the sign up down there now, the construction sign, and really since it's been warmer weather, they've been able to gain a lot of ground in progress. You can see the formwork going up there for the walls of the gymnasium storm structure, like you've seen the one at Richmond, the big concrete castle there. Here's just another view of that, how they're putting it in place, and the rebar going up for the concrete pours to follow. That's the little serving area there, a little closer shot of all the rebar. And just more, at this point, lots of steel, lots of rebar, lots of concrete. The concrete panel wall you see there in the background will be the entry to the storm shelter, and you can see the recessed area where the door pockets will go. That will be quite a strong door there that will be able to repel any projectiles. And if I turn around, that's kind of where you are. We're facing Fairstown there, and you can see they've got silt fence and a tall fence in place, and then right on the other side, it's a very good, clean, open field. So they're doing a good job keeping themselves barricaded and separated from the middle school there. And this is a close-up of block work. These guys, they're getting started on the masonry now, and they're doing a fantastic job. So I thought you can see how straight the lines are, and those joints are still wet. Some plumbing going in. Here's a view down the hallways, and Dr. Gillum, of course, all along wanted the wider hallways and really good elbow room when people blast out of the classrooms and labs, and you can begin to see just how wide that is there, and that's where That's looking down the corridor area. Again, more concrete block, more footings, more rebar, more dirt with putting gravel on top of it. So good progress at Berea, even with the bad weather conditions. They've been able to really get a good stronghold this spring and continue well. So any questions with the Berea Career Technology Center?
Looks like it's moving along really.
Yes,
smoothly.
they've done a good job considering how, and we knew they were going to have, well, we didn't know how bad the winter was going to be, but we knew they had to go through the winter, and it was worse than we all could have imagined. And really, it's been a rainy spring. When it rains, it has poured this spring, and they've still been able, that dirt dries out pretty quick for them. So with that said, I'll go to the Richmond Area Technology Center, and do I understand maybe there's some discussion about the names tonight, or?
No, not tonight.
No, I'm sorry,
We'll
okay,
have
well,
that, yeah. We'll have
for
official
right-
names here.
Okay. For right now, we'll refer to them as the Area Technology Center, and this picture you've seen, of course, it was a concrete castle a month ago, but you can see they're about, I think yesterday they finished up 100% of the underground plumbing. This is the last of the footings, so they're moving along there too. Now this, don't pay attention to the dirt on the block of brick. They washed this morning, and it looks great. So if you drive by on Merchant Drive, it's behind a fence. I wish I could do something about that, but they'll let you in. If you've got some boots on, just, you're welcome to walk in. But feel free to drive by. This is facing the Toyota parking lot behind Toyota. And, from all the renderings, we had the black brick and the reddish-brown brick, and they've got it in place now, and it's washed now. What you're seeing there has dirt all over it. Looks really good. But, of course, this is your opportunity if any of the board members or Dr. Gillum or anyone says, hey, there's something I don't like, please let us know, and we can change something up before they start construction. But
Is that like where the sign goes?
that actually, no, this is, because the sign will go down towards facing 4 Mile and right on the corner of 4 Mile and Merchant. This is more towards where the front of the building will be, kind of looking out towards Toyota over the parking lot. If this were tall enough, you could see it from the bypass. But it's not quite tall enough.
It just looks
But
like a
that's
sign.
where it is, yeah. It does look like, this is just, we put this in the contract for them to build a sample panel. We have to, and there's a lot more to it than just the brick, how they construct their wall with ladder ties and trusses and flashing, and we look at a lot of things to make sure that the masons are doing it the way we specified it. But it also gives you the opportunity to see the brick before 200,000 brick are put in place. Yeah. You can see, because they have not ordered actually the entire shipment. Those are just a couple of pallets that they brought in.
Is the middle black line there for a reason?
That only occurs on the back side. There's three, and it was in the rendering, and I can show you the rendering sometime. But the black pillars on the side, and I feel bad that I've showed this now because the brick is so dirty in this picture, but it's really clean. The black pillars on either side, are the pillars to the tall tower, and then the reddish brick goes all the way around. Well, on the back where those labs are, there's these big brick walls that just have nothing. So we took some of those black brick and made kind of accent lines in it, so it won't quite look like that.
It's just because it's a small scale.
Yeah, it is a very small scale. I really wanted them to put that in there so I could see how they were going to do it. But I can send Dr. Gillum the renderings again and okay. But again, please, this looks so dirty, so drive by there and take a look at the finished brick, and that black really stands out. And so now I'm inside the storm shelter, looking at the block wall that they're building. Now I'm all the way up at the top of the gym on ladders, looking back down. There's a mezzanine in there where the HVAC equipment will go. This is looking over that wall into the storm shelter, so you can see they've made a lot of progress, pouring some of the very last footings on the job site. And they're doing a great job. I can't be, and I think Mr. Cash has said it as well, and Dr. Gillum, we've all been by there and talked with them and seen the progress, and really couldn't be going any better as far as I'm concerned. And the quality of work, which is important as well, but meeting the schedule, things of that nature. This is the storage building that goes out between the back of the labs and 4 Mile Road. Again, I showed you at Berea. I want to show you here too. It's hard to cut those electrical devices into a block wall. And this is two different masons, but both masons at both sites doing a fantastic job. Electrical going in, this is of course in the mechanical room, not in an exposed area, and geothermal piping. So a lot of the underground items are done at Richmond. You're going to see things go vertical very quickly now, especially with the weather that we're going to have. The building's going to start going up. A lot of the underground stuff on the site is done as well. So good progress at both sites. Any questions on Richmond? Clark Moore's, I think I reported to you last time we were still waiting on design development approval, and at that point we'd already submitted for final plan approval. Today, I think they swept them all together yesterday, reviewed them. We got approval to go out to bid today. So I had shown you phasing plans in the past that had us starting right when school was out. Of course, the project's not even out to bid now, which we're going to get it out as quickly as we can. But we've had to kind of adjust some of that, the schedule, because of the approval that we just got today to go out to bid. And you cannot go out to bid without KDE approval. But with that said, I think the strategy we're taking is we're going to get everything set up into the school so that the contractors can come in. I'm sorry. I haven't even talked about this with Dr. Gillum yet. Looking at the schedule, it looks like maybe June 15th, which I know is past your June board meeting. So we'll have to look at how we can get approval on that. But we've got to have it out to bid for 4 weeks, and we've got to have advertising in the paper, things of that nature. So we waited on KDE, and that's where we stand. But that's not first stone. I need to run that by you. We need to have that discussion, and we're going to have pre-bid times and dates. But with that said, if it bids around that time, there's not a lot of time for the contractor to get a lot of work done between now and when school gets back in session. So our primary goal is going to get the contractor written into the contract so that they're in the building, get the partitions up, get the site safe for the students to come back, get some perimeter fencing up and all the barricades. So they may not have gotten a lot of work done, and they'll get some work done. They'll get a lot of demolition done. But by the time the kids will get back in school, it's a safe environment for the work in. At this point, I haven't really pushed the end date out, which would be, pretty much mostly done by the time August of 22 comes around. Yeah, so August of 22, they'll mostly be done, although there may be a few things to wrap up. I'm just condensing their time together, and of course, Mr. Cash and Mr. Sexton have also been very liberal on the areas that they're given the contractors to work in. So they're going to be able to work on more areas at one time, which, will be a good thing all the way around.
So how long do you think this has set us back?
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to set the schedule up so that they are finishing up in the middle of August of next year. There could be some things like the very front entry where it bleeds over into September. So I guess that's what I would say. Where I thought maybe we could have been absolutely done by the time we walk into school, the second or third week of August of 22, some of the work may bleed over into September. So not a lot, but the amount of work that they're doing within that time frame will just be more on them. But, Mr. Cash and Mr. Sexton were able to, they're going to do well, and of course, Mr. Anderson as well has been on board with working out how they're going to feed the kids. So they're going to go ahead and give the contractors in the contract the entire cafeteria kitchen and the kitchen addition. We're doing the cooler freezer. They can start working on that on day one. So they'll have that whole time to get that area complete. So things like that help the schedule. So we've been kind of collaborating with this new information that we have on schedule so that you all won't be delayed when the school's finished.
Yes. But to answer that question directly, we submitted our design and development plan to Kentucky Department of Education on February 24th. We got approval today.
It's tough to work.
It's just unacceptable, I'll just say it.
It's tough. Because we try to estimate schedules for owners, and when you factor in the approval process.
And and there are a lot of nuances in there, but and I will say that that department was gracious in that they did approve design development and final plans, MBG1, MBG5, all in one lump sum in order to get us where we were, but.
Well, I forgot to mention
that is the backlog that we're
Dr.
looking at.
Gillum had to get involved. And when Dr. Gillum got involved and made some phone calls, that helped. So appreciate that. So any questions on Clark Moore's or anything that's going on construction-wise? Okay.
Oh, it's fantastic.
All right, great.
Very nice. Keep bringing us good news.
Well, I will
everyone.
certainly try to do that.
That's what we want.
Hopefully those bids, I know Mrs. Coyle mentioned last time about wood going up, and ever since then, steel's going up, and everything else is going up, and labor availability, so I'm crossing my fingers on the numbers, so hopefully that will be good news as well, so
Yeah, yes.
we'll have to see on that. Thank you.
All right, Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Tony.
All right. Okay, so moving right along, we have our action agenda, and up to the podium for quite some time is Mr. Mark Woods, starting with our monthly financial reports.
Good evening. How are you all?
Good. Do you need a chair for how long?
I might be up here a little while. We'll see how this goes. All right. I'll go ahead and start with our financial report. As of April 30th, we ended with a reconciled balance of $87,825,740.73. We've been talking about this for a while. You know, it's up compared to this time last year. We have all that bond money that, we'll start paying out. As they start going vertical, we'll start seeing that chunk down quite a bit. So, we have to sell those well in advance so that we have the funds. So that makes up the biggest difference there. Of the reconciled balance, the district still has $5,740,990.65 in investments, and the rates range from 0.45 to 0.65. Rates are just extremely low right now, and honestly, a lot of banks aren't interested in taking in big deposits, so we're doing pretty good with what we've got. We just keep holding steady, and we're just holding on with what we got and keeping everything liquid for now. Also in your packet that you received, you had the balance sheet and the revenue expense report for April. I have went through the revenue expense report looking at our different line items, looking for to make sure we're on target, and we seem to be falling in line with our budget as we predicted. That's it.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Woods? Fantastic job as usual.
Thank you.
All right, so if we don't have any questions, I just need a motion to approve our monthly financial reports as presented.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All right, we'll do a motion by Mrs. Burford and a second by Mrs. Brock. All those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? No? Okay,
No.
motion carries. All right, and so next up is Mr. Woods to talk to us about setting our penal sums.
So this is our, KDE every year does a calculation on our required penal sum for our bonding. They've set the requirement at $800,000. As a board, you've felt that it is more important, especially for my position and Nina Thacker's position, that we have more on those. So we do carry $2 million on those two positions just because of the level of financial responsibility that goes along with those. All of our other finance-related and board positions, we do carry the minimum, the $800,000 that is required by KDE. And this is just to set that penal sum and give us the authority to go out and renew our bonds for the year.
All right, does anybody have any questions? So just in summary, this is just a routine approval to bond, and we're not talking about construction bonds, we're talking about fidelity bonds.
Yes.
Bonding our individuals who make financial decisions. So, okay, so if we don't have any questions, I need a motion to set the penal sum for fidelity bonds for our treasurer and director of financial services in the amount of $2 million, and for additional board finance-related positions of $800,000 for our 2021-2022 school year, and to authorize the renewal of the current bonds we have in place.
So move.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Coyle. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second by Mr. Rutherford. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. And then, next on the agenda is Mr. Woods to talk to us about our indirect cost rate.
So this is another one of those annual items that we have to take a look at, do a calculation. There's a summary provided by Kentucky Department of Education. I go online, I look through, verify any numbers that need to be moved in and out, make adjustments. This allows us to set our indirect cost rate. There are a few grants that we do charge indirect costs. Basically, it allows us to collect our traditional, what you would consider overhead from those grants. One of those is food service. A few years back, Kentucky Department of Education asked us to start collecting through, instead of direct charging some of those services, to collect it through indirect. It's just a different method. We do a calculation, comes up with a percentage, you do the math, and that's how we collect our dollars to offset most of the routine things of building, property management, of course, the finances, and things of that nature. And it's a way to bring funds from those. We have very few that we charge indirect on, and the reason we do that is we try to maximize the dollars of, especially those federal grants, to be used directly on kids instead of taking them in to cover overhead expenditures.
Does anybody have any questions? No questions? All right. So I need a motion to, for the districts, we have the ability to charge indirect cost rates to certain federal programs based on a federally approved formula. The rates are approved by our local board and then the Kentucky Department of Education. And we must do this prior to June 30th. So do I have a motion to approve the indirect cost rates as presented?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Brock. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second by Mrs. Burford. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. And next we have Mr. Woods on our 2021-2022 booster events and fundraisers.
So we're required to have board approval on any booster events to allow them to operate and to raise funds on behalf of our schools. For the past several years, what we've done is have the board approve all of those events up front. And with that approval, it states that as long as the principal of the school has reviewed their fundraiser and has approved it, then the board has considered to have approved it as well. So really what we're doing, instead of each booster having to schedule in meetings and trying to get things to you all, you're giving a blanket approval for those. They are reviewed, and honestly, a lot of times with these events, I get a phone call from the school and they go over them with me to make sure that we're in compliance with Red Book and other laws and regulations. So I see a lot of these up front. I discuss a lot of these with the principals, and any time that there's something noted that we need to maybe strengthen an internal control on, I always call the schools and the boosters and talk to them directly.
Do you have any questions? Any questions? All right. So the statewide school accounting regulations require board approval for all school-wide fundraisers of booster organizations. The district's liability insurance also requires board approval for all of the internal booster events. So we're just doing a blanket approval for those for the 2021-2022 year. So do I have a motion to approve our booster events and fundraisers for the coming school year?
So move.
All right, we have a motion by Mrs. Burford. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second by Mrs. Coyle. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And next on the agenda, along the same lines, is Mr. Woods with our school-wide fundraisers.
Very similar process. According to the Red Book, we're required to have board approval for any school-wide fundraisers. Now, school-wide fundraisers are those where every kid in the school are participating in it. You'll see these a lot of times where they bring home the little magazines that have wrapping paper and a little bit of everything in it, chocolates, you name it. And every kid takes it home, and every kid's involved in the fundraising in the school. That's what you're approving through this. We're doing another blanket approval. It's going to work in the same way. The principal is required to get the fundraiser approval forms up front before they can start fundraising, so the principal will have reviewed it again many times. If they have questions, they consult with me. We look through them, we talk about things that are going on with it and make sure that we're in compliance.
The distinction here is what we just talked about was for boosters.
Was for outside boosters, yes.
This is for basically non-boosters.
Yes, this would be for your internal school accounts.
Okay, great. All right, any questions? Okay. So we are recommending that the board consider granting approval for the events conducted by the school and student groups for the 2021-2022 year, and one action to eliminate frequent approvals throughout the year for each individual fundraiser. This will not preclude each school or group from obtaining approval from their respective principal to operate the particular fundraiser. So do we have a motion to approve the school-wide fundraisers for 2021-2022 school year?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Rutherford. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
And a second by Mrs. Brock. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. All right, and next up is also Mr. Woods, our 2022 site-based allocations.
All right, so each year we go through the process of doing allocations with the schools, looking at needs for each school. We do have an approved allocation formula. This is the result of that. It's required to come to the board in May and have your approval. We have met with the schools in 2 separate meetings. We've provided the schools with their copies and their that they will present to their site bases. They will also do budgets for their supply money, their Section 6 supply money off of this. We have followed the allocation module model to the T to make sure that we provide the schools with what our model says we need to provide them with.
Does anybody have any questions? It's just projecting enrollment.
Use projected enrollment, and based off of that, there are formulas built in. Again, this had to be approved by the board and then by Kentucky Department of Education. Our formula, it's been in place for a few years, this particular one. And you just go off the formula. Everything's based off enrollment and students, and it helps us to dictate how many teachers we need to provide each school.
If we don't have any questions, do we have a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022 site-based allocations?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Mrs. Brock and a second by Mr. Rutherford. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, and next on the agenda is also Mr. Woods, and it's our 2022 Family Resource School District Assurances.
So this is a process where we have to provide an assurance, and basically what we're stating to the state is that we will maintain compliance with all laws and regulations around this, and will spend the funds in accordance with all laws and regulations as stipulated, and we have to do a formal assurance process.
Basically just confirming we'll follow the rules.
Yes.
All right, does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Well, if we don't have any questions, I need a motion to approve the 2022 Family Resource and Youth Service Centers School District Assurances as presented.
So moved.
Okay, we
I'll
have a
second.
motion by Mrs. Coyle and a second by Mrs. Brock. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, aye. Any opposed? No? All right, motion carries. All right, and also Mr. Woods, see, I told you you needed a chair. We have to approve our Sr2 Assurances.
Similar process. This is for our second round of ESSER funding that we will be receiving through the state, and we have to do the same thing. We have to provide assurances that we will comply with all federal regulation and state regulations in spending these funds and spend them accordingly.
And the ESSER funds, will you remind the people what those are?
So this was the second round of funding from the federal government as part of the CARES Act. Well, the first was the CARES Act, and this was the second act that they passed. It's a second round of funding that came to the state, and the state has allocated that out, the portion that was set aside by the federal government for schools. So this will be our second round of funding for that. And we will be making budget plans for that.
And there are stipulations with that.
There are stipulations, you're required with this, 85% on direct services to students, so that is the target of this.
Okay. Do you have any questions? No questions? All right. I need a motion to approve the Sr2 Assurances as presented.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Mrs. Burford. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second by Mr. Rutherford. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And next up is Mr. Woods for our revised BG1 for our Phillips construction project, Phillips Building.
All right, so there's not really a lot that's changed with this. Really what we're doing is we're changing the funding stream. Our capital funds that we have each year, our capital outlay and FSPK, they will go into escrow on June 30th. Once they go into escrow, we're required to set them back, and we get more restrictions on how we are able to use those funds. Basically, it can only be a Tier 1 project. That's it. So in order to secure these funds and this is basically considered a capital request because we are submitting it through a BG1. In order to do that, we have to do that in May. We get these funds allocated. We have them available. We've made all of our bond payments. This is the money that we have at the end. So we're wanting to send this BG1 in, change it from us actually bonding as much, and use these funds on this Phillips project.
the net effect of this. It made a lot of news, but it was more about the interest around it really than, I believe, the impact. We do receive funding for any student that's held back the same as we would. And many, I would probably say that many of the students, I mentioned that net impact really at the kindergarten level, many of those would likely, really do need an extra year. They would probably have been retained anyway, many of them. So really no net impact. It's in your hands. You all can do with it what you want, but I would recommend approval and consideration of Senate Bill 128 for Madison County Schools.
Did you say that the seniors graduate and then still come back? Or-
Yeah, this coming year, it's a unique year. Because they wanted to extend this to everyone, they made the provision for 1 year for the 21-22 school year that we would have to, if we approve this, approve a graduated senior program. So basically, those seniors will graduate at the end of the year. And it's probably going to be, like I said, around 7 or 8 is what we're thinking. We have a few that have signed up. Some did it just in case they wanted to. So in the end, it will be a few of those, and we will have a program for them to do where they take additional classes. And they can take college classes as well, but it would be dual enrollment, not dual credit, which means they're not eligible for any of the dual credit reduced tuitions or scholarships or anything like that. They would have to pay college tuition rates if they want to do that. But we're going to work with those students that elected. Not out of the 4,500 we have in our high schools, again, not that impactful.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and I think what strikes me here is that, I'm in favor of this, but this is something that we would have done regardless. If we would have had families come to us and say, we're concerned, we would have worked with the teachers. We hold students back every year if the parents and the teachers don't feel like they're ready to go back. That's what we do. And that's the reason that we have student success is we work as a group. So I'm in favor of this, but we would have done this anyway. So.
Anybody else have anything?
And you said we don't have to worry about any kind of teacher impact.
No, it's not. Really, I explained the net effect to you. That's really what we're seeing. As we filter it out across the district, it's 2 or 3 at each grade level at every school. And the others, we don't have students that roll up. We have some that stay. So.
And is there, should a student and families, if their families change their mind, is there a cutoff date of when they need to notify us that they no longer want to do this?
Yeah, so what we're going to do, we're going to announce a date that we're going to ask them to notify us if they, but at the same time, there's, depending upon, how far along we go, there's always options for them to, for example, if a student, Ms. Cole asked the question about the graduated senior program. Beyond 21-22, there's not a graduated senior program, okay? But the law says that a student who achieves all of their credits shall be graduated. We don't have a choice. They have to graduate, and they have no longer have a right to come to public school. And so if a student's currently in high school, changes their mind, if they can work out a schedule where they get their credits in and then go ahead and graduate, the same way we're graduating some students early right now. We have some students that apply for early graduation because they get started on their courses and they go through and they follow that process. We're trying to be as individualized and open for our students as we can, and this is just another way to provide some options. Again, it made a lot of news because of the athletic side of it, but again, not very impactful on our district.
Have we made sure that, especially any of those seniors, if any of them are athletes, have they been counseled on the fact of the eligibility requirements that are attached to this law?
We have shared that with them, and we're going to do individual counseling with all of those. The most impactful piece are for those students who are currently in grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. For a student that gets held back in 5th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, they haven't, because the NCAA looks at they start the clock when you start your 9th grade year. So for those that repeat the 8th grade, It's not going to impact them as long as they remain eligible with the age provisions that have not been waived by the Kentucky High School Athletic Association. As long as they're eligible to participate based on age, when they start their 9th grade year, since they were held back in 8th, their 4 years of high school are their only 4 years. For those who are currently in 9, 10, and 11 grades, and they get held back, they will end up being in high school. They will spend their supplemental year in high school, which puts them there 5 years, and the NCAA only counts your first 4. So that is an issue that we've made them aware of, and then we're going to do individual counseling with those students. And it goes beyond just, we think of D1 athletes, but it impacts. There are a lot of students that go on to participate in college athletics that may not have thought they were. So we're counseling those.
So I would just encourage any of those people that are considering this for athletics, you make sure you have those conversations and you understand fully what the ramifications could be. All right, do we have any other questions for Dr. Gilman? Okay. So I need here's kind of our rationale for what we're doing here. Here's the summary of the Senate Bill 128. To allow K through 12 students currently enrolled in the 2020-2021 school year to use the 21-22 school year as a supplemental year to retake and supplement coursework already completed, and it requires local Board of Education to approve or deny all requests. So we have to blanket approve these. We don't pick and choose. So it's all or nothing. All right, so do I have a motion to approve all of the requests to use the 2021-2022 school year as a supplemental school year per Senate Bill 128?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Mrs. Brock. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second by Mrs. Burford. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. All right. And so next on our agenda item is to approve our pupil attendance regulation waiver.
Yeah, this is a waiver request that would permit us to, not to necessarily to do virtual instruction next year, but a waiver on how those students would be counted in their attendance piece. Now, when I say do virtual instruction, there is no provision right now in the law whatsoever to allow for any extension of NTI days or anything else. When we start the 21-22 school year, we are on the straight, regular calendar, 1,062 hours of in-person instruction with all of the compulsory attendance laws and all of that in place. We will have the 10 days of NTI provision that we've had for several years for weather and other medical issues or health and safety issues. But so what this waiver does, we do have a few students that are still requesting and want to participate in virtual instruction. We have always, I say always, we have had for the past probably 12 years opportunities for students to do performance-based credits and online work and some of those things. Those have always existed and they still continue to exist without any type of waiver. What this waiver allows us to do is to have those students who might be in a virtual environment to be able to count them the same way that we do students in person. The other way, where we counted them on a performance-based credit, it wasn't as beneficial to us on attendance. So since we anticipate we'll have a few more students than a typical year want to do this type of piece, and we would be able to provide that for them and still pull funding for them. That's what this is. And our numbers, we don't really know, but I'm guessing right now, based off of preliminary indications, we're probably talking about 100 students who have requested virtual instruction K-12 across our district for next year. Okay? So what we will do is we will have some teachers available to them. We'll use our relief money to provide some teachers for that platform and provide instruction for those students that want that and those families that want that. But again, we're having school in person, okay? So don't confuse that.
All right. So this waiver is basically to allow us to have students who want to be virtual next year to be included in our attendance figures.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any other questions for Dr. Gilman? Okay. So let me read our rationale here. The waiver request will allow districts to count students enrolled full-time in a virtual school to be considered in attendance for purposes of recording daily attendance. The waiver request is only for the specific sections named. The request does not seek a waiver of any other Kentucky administrative regulation or of federal law. Only students whose families have requested to be enrolled in the virtual school program or academy are included under this waiver. All right, so I need a motion to approve the waiver under KRS 156.1602A, 702 KAR 7.125, Section 1, and subsections 1 and 4 to allow students K through 12 who are enrolled full-time in virtual school program or the academy to be counted in attendance for the 2021-2022 school year.
So,
We have a motion by Mr. Rutherford. That was a mouthful. A motion by Mr. Rutherford. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Mrs. Brock. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. All right. And next on the agenda is to approve 2 Madison Southern High School football assistant coach positions.
Yeah, our football teams have been doing this for the past few years. They would like a couple of extra coaching positions above and beyond what the board allocates. And so the way we do that, they can't hire coaches, they can't create those. The board has to create them. What they do is they reimburse us up front for the cost of the salary plus any of the fringe matching pieces that are required on that. So we've been doing it for several years for both high schools. I recommend we continue with that.
This is something we do every year. We can only do it for a
It
one-year
only extends
period,
1 year,
so
yes.
we bring this up every year. This isn't anything new. It's more of a formality. So do we have any questions? Any questions? Okay. So let me read the rationale here. The Madison Southern High School football boosters are requesting the creation of 2 additional stipends, football assistant coach and a football paid assistant. The stipends will directly correlate to the appropriate amount as listed in the approved salary schedule for the district-provided positions. The Madison Southern High School football boosters will pay the cost of the stipend plus all associated fringe benefits, employer costs, FICA, Medicare, workers' comp, etc. Okay. So I need a motion to approve the 2 Madison Southern High School assistant football coach positions to be paid by Southern's football boosters.
So moved.
All right, so we have a motion by Mrs. Coyle. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second by Mr. Rutherford. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And motion carries. All right. And then next on our agenda is to create and ratify 1 special ed consultant position.
Okay. And, yeah, I'll speak to this real quickly, and actually I'd like to go ahead and speak to N and O as well, so that when you get to there, you can move on. This is to create a consultant. Our consultants work, they chair our ARC, our admissions and release committees for students who with special needs who have been referred to special needs, and to help develop those IEPs for those students. And they work with they work obviously with all of our special ed teachers and help them develop those and chair those meetings. Our number of special needs students has increased over the last few years, continues to increase, and as well this past year with having to go to virtual instruction, we had to modify a lot of our IEPs, and then we're going to have to modify a lot of them back. And so with those 2 components, the increase in numbers and the increased needs, we really need an additional person to be able to manage that work. And then with the school psych position, school psychologist position, again, the numbers are increasing. Our school psychologists, we certainly know all of the mental health needs that we have. They help with that, but as well, they have to do an evaluation and then a subsequent reevaluation of every student that we refer to special ed. So they have to do an initial evaluation for every student referred to special ed, and then they have to do a reeval for every student that is actually admitted and develops an IEP. So that's just increased casework, and I will also speak to that school psych position. I don't want to get out of order here, but we've had an intern position to help handle that workload. We've not been able to find an intern. Okay, So that position's sitting there. But we do feel that we could, rather than, since we can't hire an intern, we could hire an actual school site position. But we didn't want to convert that position because in the event, we do need additional help. And in the event that we're able to add an intern, if one should come along and we'd be able to snag one, we'd like to have a position we could put them in, okay? So that's those two positions, and I'll let you get back to 7 in there.
Yeah, well, we can kind of take them, we'll do them separately, but as
Yes.
far as questions and stuff go, does anybody have any questions? Okay, all right. I think it was pretty self-explanatory. So the first one is to create and ratify a special ed consultant position. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Mrs. Burford. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Mrs. Brock. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And then we'll just move right on to our next item, which is a motion to create and ratify one school psychologist position.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Rutherford. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Oops.
Uh,
Please, for Ms. Cole.
We'll do Mrs. Coyle as a second then. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so motion carries on that one as well. And then our next agenda item is to create and ratify 4 district-wide academic coaches/teachers.
Yes, and Dr. Hunter spoke to this as part of that academic recovery and intervention plan and in the instruction report. And as well, Mr. Woods alluded to it a little bit. This will be paid for using those, what we're calling ESSER 3. We mentioned ESSER 2, but these will actually likely be paid out of ESSER 3, which requires that 20% of that funding be used directly for intervention. So we have that pot of money that has to be directly on some type of thing such as this. So that's where those 4 positions would be paid for. And as well, 7R, same pot.
So we are using our federal dollars and
Yes.
state dollars to pay for these. Okay. Does anybody have any?
Which are restricted and which are limited in how long we have to spend those, yes. So,
Always comes with restrictions. Okay. Do we have a motion to create and ratify 4 district-wide academic coaches and teachers?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Brock. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second by Mrs. Burford. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And next on our agenda is to approve the job description for Director of Teaching and Learning position.
this is the Director of Teaching and Learning that Dr. Hunter mentioned. We would approve the job description and then approve the position if the board so inclined.
So this person has to have principal certification,
Yes, yes.
5 years leadership.
Yes. It's very similar to our instructional supervisor position, which is the position that Dr. Hunter held before she moved to Chief Academic Officer. We did not fill that when I moved to Superintendent. So this is kind of in a way filling that role, but again, we will be using our, it's going to be part of our intervention plan, doing similar duties, but strictly with that intervention plan, which then allows us to use our ESSER dollars to cover that.
Okay. So this particular motion is for the job description. So do we have a motion to approve the job description as we had all already reviewed for the Director of Teaching and Learning position?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Mrs. Brock and a second by Mr. Rutherford. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. All right, and next is to create and ratify the position of Director of Teaching and Learning. Any questions? We're just creating the position that we just approved the job description for. All right, so do we have a motion to create and ratify a Director of Teaching and Learning position?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Mrs. Coyle. Do we have a second?
One second.
And a second by Mrs. Brock. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. And moving right along, next we have to approve our bus driver trainee pay, I'm sorry. And Dr. Gillum?
Yes, so, everyone's aware that we have a shortage of bus drivers, and one of the things that makes that difficult is getting them, and they have to have a CDL, and they have to go through that training. So someone can't just walk off the street and drive a bus. They have to be trained. One of the things that we have identified as kind of a barrier to that is it takes a couple weeks to get that it's a couple of weeks of seat time to actually get that training. And oftentimes we find that people come in ready, wanting a job, ready to have a job, or ready to take that job, are not able to afford missing 2 weeks of work to get the training. And so, we've kind of limped along for a few years like that, but we're getting to the point where we really need to pay our folks to train. So we do have a bus driver training rate, and so we would just pay them at that sub rate until they get their certification. Once they get their certification, then we'd up them to the certified. We'd hire them on as a certified person. Along with this are two bonus pieces. After your first 20 trips, $100 bonus, and then after your next 20 trips, so after your 40th trip, in your initial year, you get another $100 bonus. We've actually been doing this for a long time, but we couldn't find it anywhere in the books that we'd approved it, so we just attached that to this, just to make sure that we had everything clear on a trainee package.
How long does it typically take to train to be a bus driver?
It's generally a couple of weeks. It kind of depends on the individual because you have to be able to pass the assessment. There are certain required components, pieces of training that you have to go through, and those are about 24 hours, I think, of actual class time, training time. But then you have to get out on the road, do your drives, and then be able to practice your pre-trip inspection, and all of your turnabouts, and just like studying for a driver's test, only you're doing it in a 55-foot school bus. Yeah, so you all kind of know how that goes as individuals, and also you've taken your kids through that experience as well. So that's what we have. Yeah.
Do we have any other questions? All right. So I need a motion to approve the bus driver trainees to be paid the sub-bus driver rate during their training time, and authorize a $100 bonus upon completion of 20 trips and a $100 bonus upon completion of 40 trips in the initial year of employment.
I'm very happy to make this motion.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Burford. Do we have a second? Second by Mrs. Brock. All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. And next up, we have our superintendent's report.
All right, well, thank you. The past month has really been filled with a lot of recognition days and weeks. We heard earlier our nurses recognition. It was School Nurses Week. This past, well, actually, I think we're kind of finishing it up. It kind of goes over into 2 weeks. Last week was Teacher Appreciation Week. May the 1st was National School Principals Day. April 21st was Administrative Professionals Day. This past Sunday was Mother's Day, so lots of recognition times, and I just want to make sure that I take just a moment to say thank you to all of these people in all of these different roles for these days and other days that we may have missed this week, last week, and throughout the year. Couldn't be more proud of how our folks have stepped up and just done a great job for our students and for our community. And I will also want to congratulate a couple of groups out at Madison Central, the dance team for winning the NDA Large Varsity Game Day National Championship in Orlando, and then also the Madison Central Cheerleaders for winning the UCA Small Varsity National Championship in Orlando as well. Two excellent awards and recognitions for those two groups that have worked so hard. We appreciate that. As for me, we wrapped up our school allocation meetings last week, approved those earlier tonight. In the past couple of weeks, I've been busy out doing evaluation site visits. It's been great to be in our schools and visit the classrooms with the principals. Dr. Hunter mentioned just the excitement that our principals have and the good work that they are doing and their folks are doing. I was able to see that as I've been going around with with the principals. On April 20th, I met with our equity committee as we continue our work to pursue our pursuit to make sure that all of our stakeholders in Madison County schools have a great experience and are valued. On Thursday, April 22nd, we had a wonderful grand opening celebration for the App Harvest container project out at Madison Central. We appreciate all the community members that showed up. The board was there and experienced that. It's just a tremendous opportunity for our kids to be able to get in that facility and learn about agritech. And out there in our schools, I mentioned being out there, but our schools are winding down the school year. They've been very involved with K-Prep testing for the last week. Most of them are finished up, and we did have to do testing this year. We weren't really happy about it, but we were required by the feds to do that. The state requested a waiver, couldn't get it. But they did modify it, so K-Prep testing this year was only took about a third of student time that it typically would take. But still, we had to do it. But most of our schools, they finished testing now, and they're winding down to some of their end-of-the-year activities. And to be quite honest with you, things are feeling pretty normal inside of our schools as we're walking through. The students are there, the teachers are there, they're engaging. They do have masks on, and they are a little bit further apart than they typically would be, but school looks like school. And some of our board members got out last week or two, and we got to get in there, and you all got to see that and experience that as well. And then the last thing I'd mention is we're looking forward to our big end of school year of the school year event, and that's our graduations, May 21st, Friday night, Madison Southern, and then Saturday morning, May 22nd for Madison Central. That's my superintendent report.
All right. Pretty good report. Thank you. All right. Do we have any comments from the board?
Go ahead.
I was just going to quickly say thank you to Becky. 20 years sitting on a school board is a huge, huge accomplishment. And when you think of the number of students' lives that she has impacted over that time, it's amazing. When I was appointed to the board almost 9 years ago, Mona Isaacs called me, who is the current chair. She said, now listen, here's my phone number. But most importantly, here's Becky Coyles, because she knows what's going on, and she can offer you wise counsel, and that she has to me and to every school board member for the last 20 years, and it's very much appreciated. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you.
I'll second that. We all
It goes by
second that.
fast,
We all
so that
second.
10 will turn into 20 soon.
Anybody else?
I can't really follow that up too good, but I just want to say, anybody wants to drive a bus, we'll pay you to get training now. So go to the bus garage, see Mr. Lakes. We need bus drivers.
It's a great retirement job.
Yeah.
I quickly just want to say, as well as Dr. Gillum said it, congratulations to the dance team and the cheerleaders at Madison Central. You know, it was months of planning, getting them there and getting our approval to go, and it was very well thought out because of this pandemic, and all of their hard work and efforts have really paid off. And I think they're all so extremely appreciative of this, the dancers and the coaches, and they've all come and shared their experiences. And it's very, I thank everybody for us coming to an agreement to allow them to do it, because it was exciting, and to hear from them, it's exciting.
You know, I'm sure it had to be hard for them to keep their motivation up without having the regular school year activities that they would have been involved in.
Yeah, they weren't even sure they were going to get to cheer football or basketball or anything at the beginning of the year,
So they won, that's great.
yeah.
Anybody else? Okay. All right, so now we need to enter into executive session as required by law for preliminary discussion of the superintendent's evaluation per KRS 156.55716C, and to discuss future acquisition or sale of property for which publicity would likely affect the value per KRS 61.8101B. Do I have a motion to
So
that
moved.
effect? All right, we have a motion by Mr. Burford. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Burford. Mr. Rutherford.
I'll second it then.
Sorry. Motion by Mr. Rutherford, second by Mrs. Burford. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion carries. We are in executive session. motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Burford, second by Mr. Rutherford. All those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. And there were no actions as a result of that executive session, so I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Brock, second by Mrs. Coyle. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Meeting over.